This creepypasta is called the Bunnyman Bridge. Back in 1903, buried deep within the wilderness of Clifton, Virginia, there used to be an asylum. Pretty soon after the Civil War, people started inhabiting the area. Around 300 or so population-wise, it was a very small town nonetheless. People didn't like the idea of having an asylum miles down the road, so they all got together and signed a petition for the asylum to be relocated somewhere else. The petition passed and a new asylum was built, which is now known as Lorton Prison, a temporary facility for convicts to stay in until they are appropriately sentenced. In the autumn of 1904, the convicts were gathered and piled into a bus meant to transport them to Lorton. Somewhere during the drive, not too far from where they left, the driver had swerved to avoid something and the bus had started to tip. Soon it was rolling in a terrible collision course. Most of the convicts were injured but managed to escape the bus. They fled into the night towards the woods, and the next morning, a local police investigation began. They started rounding up the escaped convicts. Hours turned into days, and days turned into weeks, and then the weeks turned into months. And everyone was recovered after 4 months, except for 2 people, Marcus A. Walster and Douglas J. Griffin. Every now and again during the search for both men, the police found dead rabbits, and all of them half-eaten and dismembered. Finally, they located Marcus, dead by the Fairfax Station Bridge, now known as the Bunnyman's Bridge. In his hand, he held a man-made hammer-slash-knife-like tool with a sharp rock as the head and a sturdy branch as the handle. They thought nothing of it, and didn't care how he died, only that he was apprehended and they no longer had to worry about him. They named Marcus the Bunnyman, as they believed that he and his tool were responsible for the abundance of deceased wildlife. Later on, they realized that they had assigned the moniker to the wrong person. Still searching for Douglas, they kept on finding dead, half-eaten rabbits. Eventually, they gave Douglas the Bunnyman title instead. Months passed by and the police gave up the search. Everybody assumed that the Bunnyman was dead by now, if not gone, so they went on with their life in the small town. Come October, people started to see dead bunnies reappearing out of the blue, and started to fear the unseen. Halloween night came around, and as usual, a bunch of kids went over to the bridge to drink and do whatever kids their age in the early 20th century did. Once midnight came around, most of the kids had left. Only 3 of them remained at the bridge, 2 boys and a girl. At exactly midnight, a bright light shone from the bridge's opening, right where the kids were. A few seconds later, they were all dead. Their throats were slashed with the same type of tool that was found next to the first escapee, Marcus. But not only that, but they were cut up and down their chest and gutted like a fish. The Bunnyman then hung the boys from one end of the bridge with ropes around their necks, hanging from the overpass so that their legs dangled in view of any passing cars. The girl was hung the same way on the other side of the bridge. This happened in 1905. After that, no one saw or heard anything from the mysterious Bunnyman for another year. Halloween 1906 was approaching, and parents as well as the teens in Clifton still remembered the incident that had occurred 1 year ago at the bridge. His bridge. That night, 7 teens were at the bridge right before midnight, thinking little of it. 6 remained inside while 1, Adrian Hatala, remained a good distance away, hoping to have enough time to escape if the same thing had happened again. She was the only one to witness a dim light walking the railroad track just before midnight, stopping right above the bridge as the clock turned 12, then disappearing at the same time that a bright flash came from inside. She heard the deafening sounds of terrified screaming coming from within the bridge. It lasted only seconds, and moments later, the teens were all hung from one end of the bridge in the same way as the corpse a year earlier. Horrified, Adrian ran home and refused to tell all of what she saw. She could only spatter out words and incoherent mumblings that the people of her town had pieced together to decipher her story. No one understood it or believed her. They charged her with the teen murders and locked her up in the asylum of Lorton. In 1913, the same thing happened again, but it was 9 teenagers this time. On a Halloween night, once again, Adrian was still locked up. They dropped her sentence, but it was too late. The insanity had finally conquered her. Even if she was released, she was too far gone to even have a normal life. So she spent her remaining years in the asylum until she finally died in 1953 of reported shock. No one knows exactly what caused the said shock, but supposedly she died in her sleep, dreaming of that one dreaded night again. Perhaps the Bunnyman finally got to her. More murders were to take place, but however, after the murders in 1913, most people stayed clear of the bridge on Halloween. When 1943 rolled around, 6 teenagers went strolling out to the bridge on Halloween night. A couple hours later, all of them were dead the same way as all the others. Investigations took place, but as usual, nothing was ever discovered. In 1976, the same situation occurred, this time with only 3 people. The only other incident that had occurred since then was in 1987. Jeanette Charlotte was enjoying the night with her 4 friends. Halloween had finally come around, and they had gone out driving to enjoy the night after invading their children's candy bags. They had settled around 11 p.m. at the bridge, waiting for midnight to come. They didn't believe in the myth, so they decided to see it for themselves, and were the only ones who actually withstood the Bunnyman. It was nearly midnight, and they had waited around an hour or so when Janet started getting a little scared. They all had been pulling pranks on each other, jumping out of bushes, and even screaming at each other, so she was already a little bit worked up. Midnight hit, and by this stage, she was in total panic. She was almost out of the bridge when the lights got really bright inside. When that happened, her body was halfway outside the bridge. She saw her skin begin to tear at her chest, but nothing was piercing her. Eventually, she managed to escape, completely horrified. She hit a hanging body and knocked herself out, and when she awoke, she discovered that she had been bleeding, but luckily, the cut had just been made and wasn't very bad at all. She left and never returned to the bridge again. Since then, Janet has been seen sitting on a swinging bench on her balcony every morning, just staring in the direction towards the bridge a couple miles down. From then on, the story remains untouched and unsolved. This creepypasta is called The GIF. On March 12, 2007, on the /b/board of 4chan, an anonymous user posted a GIF image. At first glance, strangely, the GIF wasn't animated. It was titled "I'm Happy.gif" and showed what appeared to be a drawing of a smiley face, only with a realistic looking eyes and mouth. People who clicked on it saw the face's smile slowly turn into a frown, and the eyes taking on an angry appearance. It would then scream loudly, loud enough to burst eardrums, and gruesome images of rapes, bomb test victims, aborted fetuses, mutilated bodies, and animals being tortured will flash by quickly. After about 5 minutes, it would show the text, "Have a nice day," and the user's computer will automatically close out the browser and stop working, as if a virus had corrupted the hard drive. People whose computers were affected would surely be found at their homes, skinned and mutilated with a smiley face painted in blood on the floor next to the corpses. The founder of 4chan, Moot, will always claim that the picture had never existed, and that the murders were all unrelated. However, somewhere in the archives it still exists. Most people who attempt to post it are usually swiftly banned by Moot. This creepypasta is called Buried Alive Model. The Buried Alive model, often referred to as its code, the Bunnyman script, was to be found on the final story of the Pokemon Tower, and what was now been replaced with the Marowak Ghost. According to the scripts assigned to it, the Buried Alive model was intended to be the boss of the tower. Once reaching upon the top floor, the following conversation will have taken place. Buried alive. You're here. I'm trapped, and I'm lonely. So very lonely. Why won't you join me? After this, the battle would have been initiated. Once in battle view, the Buried Alive model appears to be a decaying human corpse attempting to crawl out of the ground. It has been programmed to have 2 white hands, a Gengar, and a Muck. Strangely enough, a protocol for Buried Alive's actions after he was defeated were not written. In the case of the player defeating him, the game would freeze. However, a specific ending was written by an unknown programmer upon losing the battle. In this ending, the Buried Alive model was to have stated, "Finally fresh meat," followed by several lines of gibberish. He was to have then dragged the player character into the ground surrounding him. The scene would finish with a typical game over screen. However, in the background, an image of the Buried Alive character devouring the player was to have been shown. Especially strange are the protocols for after the scene. The cartridge was to download the image to the small internal memory contained in the Game Boy, overriding the title screen that normally accompanied a Game Boy turning on. Instead, whenever it started, the player would view this image as the sound file staticmesh.wave was played. The intended purpose for this effect, unlike many of the other factors leading towards Lavender Town Syndrome, is unknown. This creepypasta is called Circle. Alright people, I'm here because I need your help. I haven't got a lot of time, and it'll be dark soon, you see. but I know that 4chan is generally the place to go when you need something or someone found in a short amount of time. All I need is a name. It's too late for me and I won't be able to do much, except pass on the name. That's the key. That's the key to staying alive, is the name. Reminds me of Doctor Who, right? Every time the doc figures out the name of the thing, what it is, it stops in its tracks. And he says something witty or figures out how to beat it. Or at least he gets to run away with a sidekick. Damn, Doctor Who. That's just nerdy as fuck. It's a nerdy as fuck reference at a time like this, but I'm just frazzled. The sun's going down, then it will come for me. It started last summer. I just got my bachelor's degree in philosophy. Sounds like a fucking waste of money, but I already had a job lined up, so lucky me, I guess. And my half-brother and his girlfriend and I were road tripping all over Europe. We're all spoiled, rich, white kids. Except my half-brother's girlfriend, Sarah, she's a spoiled, rich, and Greek. Anyway, we did the whole damn thing, starting in England and France, and all around the whole continent. And it was really cool, an amazing experience, even if it ate up a lot of money. We planned to end the trip in Greece, where Dave, and that's my half-brother, and his girlfriend's family owned some estate on an island. She and Dave kept joking about hooking me up with one of her cousins, and I was getting pretty excited for it. Plus, I really had gotten into my major and Greek mythology, so I was hoping to learn all sorts of cool stuff, and maybe see some ruins. I saw them all alright, and I wish I fucking had it, but I'll get there. So we get to the island and we meet Sarah's family, and her cousins are hot, alright? Fucking gorgeous, but they don't want anything to do with me. In fact, they seem more interested in Dave, which pisses off Sarah more than anything else. So she decides to use me as an excuse to get Dave away from them, and go see some caves on the other side of the island, which hurts my chance with these fabulous Greek ladies even more. But hell, I'm a nerd. Caves are cool and I wanted to see them, so off we go. And when we get there, it's everything you expect. The beaches were all white sands, beautiful and sunny. These caves were volcanic or something, I don't know, but the rock was all black and shiny, like perfect photo contrast. Anyway, Sarah is leading the way, chatting us up the whole time, linking to Dave. I can tell they're getting all romantic, and they never really wanted me along in the first place. I had just been an excuse to get away, so I decided to do the polite thing. I know. You never go off alone in a scary movie or that shit, but I was on a tiny, beautiful sunny island in Greece. Couldn't have been more than a square mile, and I had a flashlight. So as David and Sarah stay in the main chamber of the cave, sucking face, I flicked on my flashlight and head deeper into the caves. I can tell it's kind of veering off to the right and down a little, but I wasn't worried. See, that's the big difference. In horror movies and scary stories, you always get worried before the bad stuff happens, but I didn't. There were no hairs standing up, no goosebumps, just calm. And I could still breathe just fine, and I could just walk fine. I was just crouching down a little, and then suddenly, the floor was gone. I fell for a few seconds into pitch blackness. I hit the ground hard. I will find out later that I fractured my tailbone, but at the time, it was just a dull hurt. I had fallen on what felt like a bunch of dry sticks, and had dropped the flashlight. Still, I wasn't panicking yet. The flashlight had been on for those super sturdy mag lights, and I was sure I could find it. That kind of confidence, my friends, is rewarded. My fingers closed around the cool metal of the light, and I'll admit, there was a brief moment where I was afraid to turn it on. I murmured a quick little prayer to whoever was listening. I let my thumb pause a while before pushing down on the rubber button. The flashlight flicked on right away, but I almost wish it hadn't, because I could see the floor all around me, and what had felt like old, dry sticks. It was bones. Really old bones. I mean, like the ones that could have been Socrates' bones. That's how old they are, crunching away underneath me. After about a minute, I got over my panic and started to look around a little objectively. There were a lot of bones, enough to cover the floor of the 10-foot by 10-foot space. The walls were thick black and the same volcanic material as the rest of the cave, except for one point. About 5 feet off the ground was something had been painted on a wall in red. A circle, just a harmless, unobtrusive circle. Albeit one that was painted in a dulled crimson that almost had to be human blood. I suppressed a shiver and walked over towards it, my feet crunching on them bones, them dry bones. Haha, I get right up close to it. I shine my light on it, and still, it looks innocent enough, just out of place. So I reached my finger up and gently tapped the red circle. Then I felt it. All of the fear and anguish and horror that I should have felt when I first fell into this place. I could feel something like blood and screams and pain washed over the walls of that tiny chamber like layers of paint. And before long, I realized it was me who was screaming. Not for help, but just in this guttural, caveman fear. Dave and Sarah found me almost right away. I don't really remember them showing up or pulling me out of that place, but I must have been screaming right up until they pulled me out, because for the rest of the trip, they kept asking me what I'd seen. I couldn't tell them about the circle, I just don't know why. Whenever they asked, I just say bones. I saw bones, and for the most part, they left me alone. They had each other, and the trip ended 2 days later. I was incredibly relieved to get on that plane because since I had gotten out of that cave, I hadn't been able to sleep. I'm not that kind of guy who can go days without sleep. Hell, I don't even like to stay up late. But the night after I got out of the cave, I just laid in my bed awake, unable to move, just feeling anxious all over. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt a need to tear them open right away. The second night after the cave, the night before we left for home, was way worse. It wasn't just anxiety anymore, it was that feeling that something was making me feel anxious. My eyes would scan the darkness constantly, obsessed with the feeling that there was some entity creeping along the edges of my vision, hunting me and watching me. I never saw anything, no monsters, I just felt it. But the second I stepped foot on that plane, I felt safe and secure. I slept the whole 10 hours home, and felt well rested enough to forget about the whole ordeal. Until it caught up to me. I don't know exactly how much time passed, and it could have been more than 2 weeks. And by then, I honestly had forgotten about the creepiness. I had just started a management position at an office owned by a friend from college, and was adjusting pretty well to all the money I was going to be making. Life was looking up, and I was happy, and all was well. Yada yada yada, and then it caught up to me. The first night was the same, just anxiety, worry, the ability to sleep. I was concerned, but I figured I was replaying the experience or was just adjusting to work or something. I tried to shut it off rationally from my mind and get over it, and the night after, I even got a little sleep. Of course, the third night, the anxiety was back with a vengeance, and I sat in bed all night, lights on, looking and listening for something that was out there, hunting. That was 2 weeks ago. I know you don't believe me, ignoring all the monster stuff. A person can't go that long without sleep, but I must have. I can account for every single minute that passed these last 2 weeks. During the day, I'm fine. I did take naps, and that's probably what saved me, but every night, the anxiety would get stronger and stronger, and the feeling that something was there would overwhelm me. I knew it now, knew it was something tangible. Existing monster. But I just couldn't know what it was. If I could find out what it was, and what it looked like, and what it wanted, I could stop it, or fight it, or run. Who am I kidding? I know what it wants. It wants me. And even with a name, I won't be able to fight it. But maybe, if I find out what it is before it gets me, I write its name on my walls, or draw a circle. Time now. Anyway, the sun set, and I could feel it. Tonight is the night. It's hungry. This creepypasta is called The Church Cellar. In the small town of Stoll, Kansas, a old one-room chapel on top of a hill. It was surrounded by graves, and besides the church was a cellar that was very difficult to find, as the doors had grass grown upon them. In front of the church was a great tree that was always bare. None of the town members could ever have seen a leaf upon its branches. In the town's earliest years, well before the Civil War, there were several farming families that lived there. The minister's daughter had fallen madly in love with a boy from nearby, but had her heart broken when a young man was discovered to have impregnated a certain flirtatious town girl. The two were married, and all the while, the reverend's daughter saw them happy together. Her hatred brewed until after 9 months of painful endurance, the despisal boiled over. Shortly after the young couple's child was born, the minister's daughter went to their house. They greeted her cheerfully, but noticed all too late how she eyed the child bloodthirstily. She slit the throats of the two who made her life so miserable, and then dragged their bodies along with the newborn child, up the hill to the church. She put the bodies into the cellar and left the baby there, between their bodies, to starve to death. She locked the cellar shut and hung herself on the tree in front of the church. The bodies in the cellar were not found for 3 weeks. From that day on, the leaves never grew on that tree. If you walk the graveyard late at night, you can hear the sound of babies children cry. The town peoples burnt down the tree many years ago in hopes of putting the minister's daughter's spirit to rest. And more recently, the church collapsed onto itself, burying the already difficult to find down the cellar. Many have looked for its doors, but few have found them and ventured beneath its depth to have seldom returned. with the exception of a few who came back to the sunlight after 3 weeks beneath, starved nearly to death and covered in blood that is not their own. This creepypasta is called The Hat Man. It's December, my favorite month of the year. There are only a few days left until Christmas, and my parents and I finally finished decorating the house. We were all exhausted, and I went to bed much earlier than usual. A gentle fire kept my room warm. It was mostly dark, except for one part of the room that was lit by streetlights that were not far from home. I went to bed and I fell asleep very quickly. I'm not sure exactly how much time passed when I started to hear footsteps in the hall. I ignored them at first because I thought it was one of my parents, and they got louder and louder as they approached my room. The door from my room slowly opened and then closed. There was a silence from one, silence that can only be heard in a cemetery. It got freezing, which is very weird knowing that the fire should burn at least until 4 a.m. Although sleepy, I slowly opened my eyes and I saw him, a big black figure standing next to my bed. He had a black coat and a black hat. I thought he was a thief and I tried to call my parents, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed. He moved his hand from my leg upwards and I could feel his nails, which were really sharp. They were really sharp knives. Like 5 sharp knives that could cause me a fatal injury every second. He slowly approached more and more until he finally reached my chest. He paused and I tried to see his face but couldn't. It was as black as the rest of it. It looked like some kind of shadow, just a lot darker. It reached my chest and I began to breathe quickly with the fear I felt. And then I felt like I was running out of air. It's like I'm choking. I thought that was it. That is over. I wanted to try one last time to get out of those icy hands. I mustered all my strength and somehow managed. I shouted to my parents' names as loud as I could. Before my parents came, I saw them slowly disappear into the darkness of my room. I told my parents about what happened, but of course they didn't believe me. Probably no one else would believe me if I told them. After being unable to recover for days, my parents took me to my mom's friend, Dr. Jack. He is one of the best psychiatrists in our city, and he told me that it was all just a dream in which your mind wakes up before your body does. It is sleep paralysis. It happens to other people at least once during their life. He said it in a reassuring voice. He even managed to repeat it, and I'm not sure how. There is certainly a way to do it. This time, before that creature grabbed me, Dr. Jack woke me up. You see, it's all in your head, and you have nothing to fear, but if you want, you can come to my therapy, and we will solve it together. That's what I did. I went to therapy every day for 2 weeks. After that, I almost forgot about it. Almost. Some time passed until I accidentally came across a picture of that thing on the internet. I did a little research and found that many people had seen it. Some even saw it several times. His name was the Hat Man. It was written on every picture I saw. Nobody knows who he is or what he wants, but one thing is for sure, no one is safe. He can lurk out of any shadow and just wait for the right moment to attack. The moment I read it, I felt again the same cold I had felt a long time ago. I felt like someone was looking at me. I slowly turned my head around until I eventually saw him. He was standing on the other end of my room waving at me. He's waving at me as he disappears into the dark again. It looked like he's gone, but I'm sure of one thing. This certainly won't be the last time that the two of us will ever see each other. This creepypasta is called Licking. My great-grandmother lived by herself up in the mountains at her cabin. Her husband was dead, so she was all alone there. She only had one companion, and that was her loving dog. They both adored each other, and the dog was a great comfort to her. Every night when she went to bed, he would lick her hand to let her know that he was there to protect her. One night, she had gone to bed and the dog had licked her hand, like he had done routinely every night since her husband died. But this night was different. She had woken up in the middle of it because she heard her dog whimpering. She wanted to comfort him and let her know that she was there for him. So she stuck her hand out by the bed and felt him gently lick her hand like always. She figured that he was just cold, so she went back to sleep. The dog's whimpering had woken her up a second time that night. So she stuck her hand out and the dog licked it and she went back to sleep. This happened a third time. She stuck her hand out and the dog stopped whimpering and came to lick her hand. She stayed awake a few moments afterwards, then went back to sleep again. In the morning, she woke up and stuck her hand out by the bed, but nothing licked her hand. She thought the dog had already awakened and was just in the front room. She rolled over and got out of bed, and heard a drip. Drip, drip, drip. She thought the sound was coming from the kitchen, so she walked over and turned the handles on the sink faucet, but it wasn't the source of the noise. After frustratingly checking the sink and its pipes, she gave up and continued into her bathroom to take a shower. As she got closer to the bathroom door, it was evident that the sound was coming from within. She opened the door and looked above the bathtub and gasped in utter horror. There, hanging from the light by his collar, was her loving companion. His blood was dripping into the bathtub. She screamed and began to cry, wiping her eyes and sobbing. She turned and looked into the mirror. In it, she saw the dog's reflection, and written on the mirror in his own blood, with drips and streaks hanging down from each letter, were the words, "Humans can lick too."